Some of the most mentally draining games you will ever play are the ones where you queue up alone. No plan, no communication, no trust. Just you, a couple of strangers, and the slow realization that this match is about to test a whole lot more than your aim. Because solo queue doesn't just expose how good you are at the game. It exposes how well you can handle your aim, game sense, and mechanics without totally losing your mind. And the fact is, a lot of players are making it way harder on themselves without even realizing it. That's why in this video, I want to break down how to actually play better as a solo queue player. How to adapt when nobody communicates, how to carry more without forcing everything, and how to stop depending on random teammates you can't rely on. Because solo queue is miserable if you play it the wrong way. But if you understand what it really demands from you, you become way more consistent, way harder to kill, and way harder to stop. Part 1. Stop expecting real team play from randoms. The biggest mistake solo queue players make is expecting their team to function like a team. That sounds obvious, but a lot of people still do it without realizing it. They swing because they assume somebody is covering them. They hold an angle, expecting a call out that never comes, and they make a setup play that only works if two other people do their job properly, and when it falls apart, they instantly get frustrated. But solo queue gets a lot easier when you accept one simple thing. You are not playing in a controlled environment. You are playing in uncertainty. And once you really accept that, your whole playstyle starts to change. Instead of asking, what should my team be doing here, you start asking, what is the safest useful play I can make, even if nobody helps me? And that mindset is huge. And I don't mean you should completely abandon your team and think that you should 1v5. But you have to play like you are the most important variable, because you don't know your teammates, so you can't trust them. And solo queue isn't about perfect rank theory. It's about choosing plays that still hold value, even if your teammates do nothing. That means taking positions where you can get your own information. It means using characters or weapons that can create independence. And it means avoiding risky plays that depend on perfect timing from people you don't know. A lot of players get mad because the game in their head is different from the game they're actually in. They want structure, they want coordination, they want reliable support. But solo queue rewards adaptation more than expectation. The faster you stop demanding ideal team play from randoms, the faster you start becoming independently good in ranked. Part 2. Play in a way that gives you your own answers. If nobody is communicating, then your gameplay has to create clarity for you. That means you need to start valuing self-sufficient information way more. A lot of solo queue players die because they're constantly guessing. They don't know where pressure is coming from, they don't know if a side is weak, they don't know if somebody slipped past a flank, and they don't know if their teammate's death means anything useful because nobody said what happened. So they end up reacting late, rotating late, peeking wrong, and getting caught in situations they never really understood. When communication is bad, information becomes your lifeline. That's why solo queue players need to love anything that gives them independent reads on the game. Utility, audio, map awareness, enemy habits, timing patterns, body language from teammates, kill feed awareness. Every tiny cues matter more when the comms are dead. And you have to become the kind of player who notices things without being told. If a teammate suddenly leaves a position, what does that probably mean? If two enemies were seen on one side but nothing happens for 10 seconds, where could they be rotating? If the enemy team keeps taking early space for free, how can you start punishing that without needing your team to help? These are the little adjustments that make solo queue players smarter. Because when the game gives you no communication, you have to build your own internal communication. You basically need to narrate the round in your own head. Not in an overcomplicated way, just enough to keep yourself grounded. Like, what do I know? What don't I know? What's the safest assumption? What's the highest value move I can make from here? And that alone can make you play so much calmer. Part 3. Stop taking fair fights. In solo queue, if you keep taking neutral fights over and over, you're going to feel like the game is flipping a coin every round. And that's because neutral fights are unstable. If your team is inconsistent, you can't afford to rely on raw 50-50s all game. You need to stack the odds in your favor before the fight even starts. And that means better positioning, better timing, and better crosshair placement. A lot of players think carrying in solo queue means forcing hero plays and swinging everything. But a lot of the time, carrying is really just reducing stupidity. It's refusing low value peaks, it's not wide swinging into two people. The best solo queue players are usually not the most flashy, they're the most efficient. They know when to disappear, and they know when to stay alive, and they know when to back off and let the enemy overextend. When you can't rely on teammates, your life becomes more valuable. Because if you die early trying to force a play, you're now expecting the exact people you said you couldn't rely on. And that's the worst position to be in. So, if you want to win more in solo queue, stop fighting honestly. Take fights where you have a reason to believe you win. And if you don't have that reason, don't force it. Part 4. Your positioning matters more than your mechanics. A lot of people blame solo queue losses on teammates, when the real issue is that their positioning is making the game 10 times harder than it needs to be. When you're alone, positioning becomes everything. Because good positioning does three things. It gives you more control, it gives you more escape options, and it lowers how much you need from other people. That's exactly what you want in solo queue. You want positions where you can fall off slightly. You want angles that let you isolate fights. You want spots where your utility, vision, or movement gives you an actual advantage. And you want to avoid positions where one mistake from a teammate instantly gets you killed too. A lot of solo queue players unknowingly play too trusting. They hold wide, exposed angles. They overcommit to spots that need teammate support, and they enter areas with no backup plan. And then when the team collapses around them, they have nowhere to go. And the better way to think about solo queue positioning is this: can I still survive if nobody helps me? Because that question changes everything. Because suddenly, you start respecting exits. You start respecting timing windows. And you stop overextending after a good play. And you start choosing spots and that let you keep influencing the round instead of dying in the first 10 seconds. Good mechanics are nice, but mechanics become way more powerful when your position gives them room to matter. Part 5. Learn how to read your teammates without needing comms. This sounds weird, but one of the best solo queue skills is learning how to read random teammates. Because even when they aren't talking, they're still telling you things. You can tell who plays scared, you can tell who overpeaks, you can tell who rotates too fast, you can tell who likes lurking, and you can tell who has decent awareness and who clearly doesn't. And once you figure that out, you stop expecting the same things from everybody. That's important because solo queue gets easier when you stop trying to force randoms into roles they're clearly not going to fill. If one teammate keeps sprinting in first every round, maybe you stop expecting patience from him and start playing off the chaos he creates. If another teammate is always late, maybe you stop building plays around his timing. If somebody seems decent and reactive, maybe that's the guy you choose to shadow more often. Solo queue has a weird rhythm to it. Sometimes your best adaptation isn't trying to control the team, it's figuring out what kind of mess your team is creating and then finding the smartest way to exit inside that mess. Now this might mean baiting the over-aggressive guy a little, not in a toxic way, but in a practical way. Let him create contact, then trade it properly. It might mean anchoring a weak side because nobody else will, and it might mean following the one guy who seems to understand the map. You don't need your teammates to be good, you just need to stop being surprised by what they are. Part 6. Be selfish in the right way. Now this is where a lot of people get confused, because when I say be selfish, I don't mean troll your team, and I don't mean to ignore objective play, and I definitely don't mean to bait everyone and play for fake stats. I mean that you need to start protecting your own consistency. Solo queue punishes players who are too dependent. If your whole game depends on teammates entering first, giving good comms, trading perfectly, and making smart decisions, you're basically handing your performance over to random people. And that's a losing system. So you need to become selfish in the right way. Choose roles that let you have impact on your own, and choose paths that let you gather info or create pressure yourself. Keep utility for your own survival when needed, and respect your own timing. Don't blindly follow dumb pushes just because your team is doing it. Sometimes the smartest play in solo queue is not the most team-looking play. Sometimes it's holding the flank nobody else is watching, or staying alive instead of forcing to retake early, or rotating later because the information isn't clear yet, or playing your own advantage instead of trying to fix everybody else's mistakes. You have to understand something. In coordinated play, trust is powerful. In solo queue, blind trust is dangerous. There's a difference. Be a useful teammate, but don't become a hostage to randomness. Part 7. Your mental is half the game. This might be the biggest part of all, because solo queue doesn't just test your gameplay, it tests your emotional control. And honestly, a lot of players are not losing because they're playing that much worse mechanically. They're losing because their brain slowly falls apart over the course of a session. One bad teammate becomes two unlucky rounds becomes a script, a missed shot becomes frustration becomes autopilot becomes bad peaks, bad decisions, and desperate plays. And now the game feels unwinnable, even if it really wasn't. That's the real danger of solo queue. It quietly drags you away from clear thinking. You start chasing the game, trying to force control, and you start overcompensating for everything your team does wrong. And usually, that just makes your own play worse. If you want to survive solo queue mentally, you need to become extremely protective over your focus. Stop replaying every stupid thing your teammate just did. Stop giving emotional emotional energy to random players you'll never see again. Stop treating every bad round like proof that the whole match is doomed. Reset faster. That's the skill. Can you lose a round and still think clearly? Can you get ignored on comms and still make the right play? Or can you see your team making dumb decisions and still avoid joining them emotionally? Because the player who climbs in solo queue are usually the ones who recover fastest. Not the ones who never get annoyed. That's unrealistic. But the ones who don't let annoyance become their identity for the rest of the match. Part 8. Focus on what always transfers between games. One reason solo queue feels so draining is because your teammates are inconsistent. Match quality is inconsistent and the flow of every game is inconsistent. So if your confidence is based on whether your team is good, your confidence is going to be unstable too. That's why you need to anchor yourself to things that transfer from match to match. Things like positioning, discipline, timing, awareness, ability to stay alive, ability to avoid bad deaths, patience in clutch moments, habit of checking the map, ability to create value without needing praise, comms, or perfect teamwork. These things travel with you every game. And when you focus on them, solo queue becomes less emotional and more measurable. Instead of saying, my teammate sold me, you start asking, did I die for free? Did I force low value fights? Did I lose patience? Did I ignore obvious patterns? Did I make the game easier or harder for myself? And that's how you actually improve. Because blaming randoms might feel accurate sometimes, and honestly, sometimes it is accurate, but it doesn't give you control. And solo queue is all about building control where there barely is any. Now, solo queue will probably always be frustrating. There will always be silent teammates, there will always be weird decisions, there will always be rounds that make you stare at your screen and wonder why you even queued up in the first place. But the players who survive it and the players who actually climb through it understand one thing. You cannot play solo queue like it's organized team play. You have to play smarter, more independent, more disciplined. You have to stop expecting the game to give you comfort and start becoming the one player in the lobby who can function even when everything feels disorganized. That's what makes solo queue players dangerous. Not perfect aim, not flashy clips, not screaming at teammates. It's the ability to stay clear-headed in messy games, to make good decisions with limited information, and to keep your value high even when the support is low. So if you've been losing your mind in solo queue lately, maybe the answer isn't trying harder to control everybody else. Maybe it's learning how to become a player that needs less from them in the first place. Now, if you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot to me if you could drop a like and maybe also a sub. It is completely free and you can change your mind later. And definitely leave a comment if you felt like any of this helped in any way, or if you can relate to anything I'm saying. Thanks for watching.